The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet sorrow. The kind of quiet that clings to white walls and polished floors, the kind that hums like a lullaby in the background of the most fragile moments of life. Room 407 had been silent for almost 7 months. Inside, a man lay unmoving, his chest slowly rising and falling with the rhythm of a machine, his mind lost somewhere far beyond reach. His name was Adrian Blake, billionaire investor, philanthropist, a man once known for changing lives with a stroke of a pen. But in that room, stripped of his suits, power, and voice, he was just another soul hovering between worlds. And then there was her, Ilara Quinn, the 25-year-old nurse who had just finished her night shift and had requested the next week to care exclusively for Adrian. She didn't know why she had felt drawn to him. Maybe it was his photo on the side table, a snapshot of a life she never knew, a laughing man in sunglasses, holding hands with a small boy. Or maybe it was the way no one ever came to visit him. It didn't feel right that someone who had given so much would be left to fade in silence. Ilara believed in something others didn't, that sometimes, words touched beyond the veil. She would hum softly while she bathed him, warm water washing away the stiffness of stillness. She'd speak to him like he could hear, narrating the sunrise or the way the rain tapped against the windowpane. "I read about you today," she said one morning, wiping down his arm. "You once paid the entire tuition for a village school in Kenya. Do you remember that? They said you cried during the ceremony." Her words weren't filled with pity. They carried hope, purpose, kindness, things the world so often forgets to give freely. What no one knew was that Adrian's mind wasn't empty. Somewhere inside the depth of the coma, he saw her. Not her face, not clearly, but her voice floated through the haze, like a melody breaking through a storm. The warmth of her hands, the gentle way she moved him when others rushed, it mattered. He didn't know who she was, but her presence was a lighthouse in a sea of darkness. One stormy night, the power flickered in the hospital. Ilara had stayed back after her shift again. "Looks like it's just you and me, Mr. Blake," she whispered with a smile. The thunder cracked outside, and she continued her routine, holding a small sponge to his chest. "You know," she murmured, "I used to believe miracles were for the movies. Then I met you, and now I hope for one every day." Her voice cracked slightly. She didn't realize how deeply she cared. "I know it doesn't make sense, but I talk to you because I believe one day you'll talk back." She tucked the blanket over him and turned to adjust his foreline. That's when she felt it, a twitch. Small, subtle. A finger. She turned back instantly. "Mr. Blake." Her voice was trembling. Another twitch. This time his whole hand moved. Ilara pressed the emergency button, heart racing, eyes wide. Then, against all odds, his eyes fluttered. Just a flicker. But it was enough to send shivers down her spine. He opened them fully for just a second, and he looked right at her. Doctors rushed in. Machines beeped. Nurses flooded the room. And yet, amid all the chaos, Adrian's gaze stayed fixed on Ilara. That night, the hospital buzzed with more than just electricity, it buzzed with awe. For a man thought lost to a permanent sleep had blinked back at the world, and the only person he seemed to recognize was the young nurse who had spoken to him every day. But this was only the beginning. Chapter 2, The Awakening and the Miracle That Changed Everything. The news spread like wildfire. Billionaire awakens from 7-month coma, headlines screamed across TV screens and social media. But the man himself, Adrian Blake, remained silent, watching the world he'd left behind slowly come back into focus. Doctors marveled at the recovery. No one could explain it. "It's rare," one neurologist admitted. But maybe, just maybe, something brought him back. Adrian still couldn't speak much, but he wrote, slowly at first, shaky handwriting that trembled across the paper like a newborn fawn. His first word wasn't his name. It wasn't family. It wasn't money. It was her. The doctors didn't understand, but Ilara did. She stepped into his room that morning with a nervous smile. Adrian's eyes lit up the moment he saw her. He lifted his hand, weak, trembling, and reached for hers. She stepped closer. "Hi," she said softly, unsure. "Do you remember me?" He nodded, eyes glassy with emotion. He tapped his chest, then slowly pointed at her. You saved me, he whispered hoarsely. It was the first time he had spoken. The room fell silent. Her breath caught. No, she said, tears forming, you saved yourself. I just believed in you. In the weeks that followed, Adrian's strength returned. He asked for Ilara every day, refusing care from anyone else. He would tell her stories of his childhood, of growing up poor and building an empire from scratch. He confessed his regrets, how money had taken over his heart, how he had become isolated. And then, he spoke of the darkness. Of hearing her voice. Of how every bath, every whispered story, every song she hummed was like a rope pulling him out of an abyss. I don't know what I believe in, he admitted one evening as she fed him soup. But I believe in you. Then one day, Adrian called a press conference. Still in a wheelchair, he asked Ilara to stand beside him. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. He took the microphone and said, "This woman is the reason I'm alive." The room went still. While I lay in silence, she spoke to me. While I was paralyzed, she cared for me with compassion the world forgot existed. And today, I'm giving her something in return. Ilara looked at him in confusion. He turned to her and smiled. You once told me you couldn't afford nursing school debt. That you worked 2 jobs. To survive. Well, starting today, you're debt-free. And more than that, he paused and looked out at the sea of press. I'm starting a foundation, the Ilara Quinn Foundation, to fund scholarships for thousands of young women in healthcare across the world. You taught me that one life, one voice, can bring back another from the edge. Tears ran down Ilara's face. She shook her head. I never wanted anything, I know, Adrian said, which is why you deserve everything. That day, Ilara became more than a nurse. She became a global symbol of selfless care, of how small acts can birth miracles. Adrian recovered fully in the months that followed. And as the foundation grew, so did their bond. They remained close, partners in hope, fighters for compassion. Some whispered they had fallen in love. Others said they were just soul-deep friends. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the miracle they created together. Not of awakening from a coma, but of awakening a world to the power of kindness.